In a world where the collective knowledge of humanity and all of her entertainment is at the palm of your hand, it can be hard to imagine a time where the world was so enraptured by a single phenomenon. One thing so appreciated that people would line sidewalks for hours waiting just for a chance to see it. One thing so iconic that it not only named today's drink, but also a chain of stores across America. Hi. My name is Gabe Bauer, and this is Top Shelf History, where we combine great stories with great drinks. This is the Blockbuster. It is the drink I have made for you based on the entertainment phenomenon of the same name. It is a drink composed of 3 simple ingredients: fat-washed corn whiskey, homemade grenadine, and Coca-Cola. And although only having a few ingredients, this packs a lot of punch and flavor, much like the punch packed in those epic movies. But before we get into the drink, let's get into the story. When a movie surpasses projections, is universally loved, and makes a global impact, today that's what earns the moniker Blockbuster. And that term has been in our lexicon for so long that many people may not be aware of its dark origins. The term blockbuster actually refers not to movies, but to World War II bombs, aerial bombs to be more specific, bombs that had such great force that they were actually capable of leveling entire city blocks. Now, we don't know where the transition came, where the Hollywood publicist and the World War II reporter came together to make this new metaphor, but we're assuming it's around the 1940s. And Hollywood would say that now movies who would have as much of an impact as the bomb would have on a city street. It was that forceful, both in terms of culture and in entertainment. But in the 1970s, the term would change again, more into our modern frame of thinking in regard to the term blockbuster. And that was with the movie Jaws, where people were so enamored and so excited about a particular film that they would line around the blocks of city streets, or literally busting those blocks in order to go and see the film. Now, Jaws changed everything, so allow me to set the stage for you so you can understand just how big of an impact this movie had. Ready? Okay. It was 1975. It was hot. And Steven Spielberg just came out with his new movie, Jaws. Most of the time in the cinema world, the summer was the time that you would take the movies you thought were gonna bomb, and not the good way, that started this whole blockbuster thing. I mean bomb as in the modern sense, where they sucked. They took that, and they would send all the movies that they believed were gonna bomb and would release them in the summer. But Jaws was also released in the summer. So what made Jaws different? Well, one, Jaws had an excellent storyline. It had a tremendously good advertising plan, and it had really cool special effects. The combination of these 3 factors led Jaws to being a major hit, a phenomenon, an anomaly in the cinema world. It made $7 million in its opening weekend and $470 million plus over the full life that it was in theaters. People weren't just going to see this movie once, they were seeing it twice, maybe even 3 times. And Hollywood started to notice. They would send more money into the special effects department. They would invest more money in advertising campaigns so that they could tell the populace, hey, we've got great stories and we think you're gonna wanna hear about them. And this is what kind of created the summer blockbuster phenomenon that we have today. It was even more entrenched in their frame of thought when in 1977, Star Wars: A New Hope broke out onto the scene, and that one blew every record in the book. Everybody was obsessed about it, and it entrenched the blockbuster, the big movie phenomenon that everybody wants to see, that everybody recognizes today. Now, that's pretty great, but I think we've had enough of our previews. Let's get to our main feature in the drink. To start, we're going to fill our glass with some ice, so allow me to open up our bucket here and grab some ice and toss it into our ever so lovely top shelf history glass. You can find those on our store on our website, by the way. Just saying. And then we're going to fill this up with perhaps the most iconic drink that you would ever have at the movies ever, Coca-Cola. So I got a nice little mini can here. We're going to open this up. Yeah, it's such a great sound. That just sounds like a good time. Pour that about 3/4 of the way up. We don't want to give it too much Coca-Cola flavor here. After all, it's not really the main feature of our drink. Put in a little bit more. There we go. And then we will put in our next big ingredient, butter fat washed corn whiskey. Now you may sit there and think to yourself, what the hell is butter fat washed corn whiskey? First of all, that sounds gross. Second of all, is that possible? Third of all, how? And let me tell you, all of it is interesting, and this is really, really worth it. So here is the actual whiskey that makes up the base of our particular liquor here. Sierra Norte Mexican corn whiskey. Now this is made with, it says native Oaxacan yellow corn. Sounds fantastic. I've actually had this straight up. This is a delicious whiskey, but I wanted us to have the feeling and the flavor of popcorn, because what we're building here in this drink is the movie experience through a sip. So for that, we have to have popcorn. Corn whiskey, popcorn, just made sense. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not that type of guy that goes to the popcorn stand and not put butter on it, so it just seems wrong to leave this without butter. So for that, we decided to fat wash this with butter. Now you may ask, how do you fat wash and what is it? Fat washing is the infusion of a liquor with a fat. You can do this with any type of fat, whether it's oils or it's, for example, like bacon fat or butter. Butter has plenty of fat in its content as well. So what you would do is that you would render the fat down into a liquid form, specifically important in bacon, lard, butter. Don't use lard, that's gross. But oil, of course, already comes in a liquid form. You would pour that in about a 2-to-1 ratio, although different recipes for fat washing have different ratios. But I used a 2-to-1 ratio here of butter to whiskey. So I did about 8 ounces of whiskey to 4 ounces of butter. I rendered the butter down into its liquid form, so I made it, and I cooked it a little bit longer. I wanted brown butter, so we had a really bold, delicious butter flavor. Then we poured that into the mason jar with our corn whiskey, and we let that sit for about 2 hours so that it really gets to know each other. The flavors start to almost do like a little dance together. They'll also start to separate a little bit, and then you're gonna take that mason jar, stick it in your freezer for about 24 hours to really ensure that infusion of those flavors, and also to separate the fat out, because it'll solidify in there. And trust me, when butter solidifies, it's not the prettiest thing, but trust me, the end is so worth it. Trust me, it's awesome. After that, what you want to do is you take your now fat washed whiskey and you strain it through a cheesecloth and a good, nice fine mesh strainer into any container. I'm using a mason jar, and you want to do that several times. I probably could have even done this more than I already did, but you can do this until it's practically clear again, and you will have a fat washed butter corn whiskey, and it's fantastic. It not only changes the flavor of the whiskey, you still get that whiskey flavor, but you also get that silky smooth butteriness. It's incredible. So for this drink, we are going to add 3/4 of an ounce of our butter fat washed whiskey. Now you could put in more, but this stuff gets pretty potent on the butter flavor, and I don't want to overdo it with us. So I think 3/4 of an ounce is going to be more than enough. And then lastly, we want to add the next most important thing when you go to the movie theater stand, and that's candy. So I mean, what is more movie theater than Coke, candy, and popcorn? I don't think I can possibly think of anything. So we are going to introduce our candy element, Grenadine. Because after all, when you drink anything that has Grenadine, it adds sweetness, syrupiness, and a little bit of fruitiness all at the same time. And I decided to make my own Grenadine, of course. I use pomegranate juice, pomegranate molasses, and orange blossom water to add a little bit of citrusy aromatic note. And it's so much better than buying store-bought stuff like, for example, roses. So give it a try if you ever want to. You can find those recipes online. It's excellent. So we're going to put in about a ½ ounce, and this will also add some really good color to our drink as well. You know what? I'm going to put in a little bit more. A little bit more. I like my sweet tooth. So this will be about an ounce of grenadine. And now we have all those flavors in together. We're just going to mix them so that they know each other even better than they already do. Add a little bit more Coke. I think we could do with a little more. Oh yeah, there we go. And then last but not least, let's throw in a Twizzler. Now, I don't know if you're a Red Vines fan or a Twizzlers fan. It's not really important here. I'm just using a Twizzler because if you bite into it, you can see that there's a little bit of a hole in there. So I'm going to try to use this as our straw to enjoy our now fat-washed Coke Grenadine Blockbuster. Let's taste it. Now, oh my gosh, right at the end, every time it gets me. That is honestly a movie experience in a drink. That you get the Coke first, and it's a little bit sweeter because of the grenadine. You have that sweet syrupy fruitiness, but right at the end, it always surprises me. It's this silky, wonderful butteriness from the butter fat wash whiskey. It is so awesome, and it just stays with you. It's truly one of the most unique drinks I think I've ever had, especially because of the butter fat wash. This is the first time I've ever used a fat washed whiskey, and it changes everything. Enjoying it through a Twizzler too, pretty great, but I think I could use a little bit more of a taste. It's like a ticking time bomb. It takes just that little bit moment, but it's probably like 3 seconds or so. And then the butter comes in right at the end, and every single time I can't help but laugh because it's butter. It's butter. There's unmistakably butter, and it's delicious. Honestly, this is a great drink, and it really just is the epitome of the movie experience. And that sounds like Last Call. So, Blockbuster, not only was it a major phenomenon back in the day, you know, we have the anomalies of the movies that we just talked about, but it was also the name of the series of stores that no longer exist except for one out in Bend, Oregon. But yeah, Blockbuster Video used to be Netflix before Netflix really took off. It was the place to go see new movies. It took the theater out of the theater and it brought it home to you. It was a place of excitement, and I remember personally going to Blockbuster with my family, and back in the 90s when Blockbuster was kind of that iconic almost monument to the 90s. And I remember going inside and looking at all the different movies, and of course there may be a movie that you want to check out, but it's already checked out by everybody else because it was so popular, so you had to look for something else, or there was candy there and maybe you wanted to go get the candy. But now, unfortunately, it has shrunk down. The massive size that Blockbuster used to be, it's now shrunk down just to the one in Bend, Oregon. And boy, is that one popular. At first, it stuck around because they didn't have the bandwidth, the Wi-Fi bandwidth, in order to be able to support streaming services. But now it has become an icon of the town. It's been owned by the same owner for ever since the 90s. And people love visiting it. They love sending their stuff, their old Blockbusters gift certificates and gift cards and all this old stuff back over to them. And it's incredible to see how it's transitioned from something that was pretty much in every town and every community to just one, and being so impactful as that one. Not only did I love going to the movies as a kid, but I also particularly love the memory of going to a Blockbuster with my family and picking out our movie, going home and watching it together on our couch. It was something that I'll always cherish, and hopefully perhaps one day I'll be able to go visit it again out in Bend, Oregon. Thank you all so much for watching. For all of our other historically inspired cocktails, you can find them right here, or you can find them at topshelfhistory.com. There we also have all of our blogs, recipes, deep dives, our shop, and more. From all of us here at Top Shelf History, remember, history is better with a drink. Cheers.